So a couple of housekeeping things. I was originally, my submission was really originally a Safe and Secure Online presentation for kids, right, for the kids track. And they did away with that, so they asked me to switch to parents, which I have for you, but the description makes it sound like you're going to be watching Garfield videos. So unfortunately, no Garfield videos. Sorry about that. But I will say this, especially for the dads in the group and moms, if you'd like to see those videos, if you'd like to show your kids some of those videos, you hit me up afterwards. I'll give you my card, email me, and I'll send them to you because they're great videos. All right, guys, I'm going to go through like a 50-minute slide in about 25 minutes slide deck, so I'm going to go pretty fast. It's going to, my audience, you guys are going to know a lot of this, but stop focusing on you, right? And think about your kids and think about life and security through their point of view. And so switch it up just a little bit. So here we go. All right. So the Center for Cyber Safety and Education did a study. It's a little bit dated, but I'll tell you, I don't think the numbers have improved. I think if anything, the numbers and the stats I'll give you have gotten worse. But they did a very large study, and out of that study, out of those stats and questionnaires that they gave to people, they came up with a lot of stats that they put in a slide deck. They made it available in a very lengthy report, and they've used that report to create actually several different slide decks. Like I say, some for younger children and some for at the junior high level. They tried high school. They couldn't quite figure it out, so they kind of switched gears. And there's also a parents edition, which I'll be doing today, and there's also a seniors edition. So as I'm going through the slides, you might also think about the seniors in your family. My mom, who lives with me, is 81 years old, and she comes to me several times throughout the day and says, you know, what does this mean? And the first thing I have to ask her is it a text? Is it an email? What's the context, right? It's usually asking her to click on something that I know is going to do bad things. But so think about that as well. All right. The biggest thing that, and this kind of sort of dates me as well, but there's a big difference between digital immigrants and digital natives. And most of us, few youngins in the crowd, are digital immigrants. So there was a time in my life when I did not, well, not only did I not have a cell phone, but cell phones didn't exist, right? I'm dating myself a little bit. There were times in my life when Bill Gates said something like, you know, personal computers wasn't going to be a thing that everybody would have in their home. And so I didn't have one in my home. And then all of a sudden in my life, technology exploded, right? So I am the immigrant. Our kids, however, are the natives. They've never known a time when they didn't have a screen in front of their eyes, right? So that's a big difference I like to point out. So kids need to understand, and it's not just kids, anything they share online will stay online forever. My buddy has a website he goes to quite a bit. That's an archive site. So sites that have been taken down and he wants to go back there and find something funny, he just goes to this website that's archived everything and he can find it. Like I say, so these stats might be a little outdated, but like I say, I don't think they've gotten better. I think they've gotten worse. 30% of children 8 to 14 years old use the internet in a way they know their parents would not approve. And you'll see some things in the slide deck that's a little bit dated as well. So chatting and using webcams with strangers, borrowing parents' credit cards. I've heard a lot of that lately. When this presentation first came out, I'm like, what parent is going to give their kids their credit cards? I think if you talk with parents nowadays, that happens a lot. Making poor decisions with personal information. They can scroll before they crawl, right? That's this new generation. My kids are youngest is 17, 19, and on up. It was a different generation for me. But the kids nowadays, that is absolutely true. So we're going to train them at younger ages. We're not going to wait. We're going to have some difficult conversations with them. If there would have been kids here today, I would have had a slight disclaimer. Hopefully these cyber skills, the cyber safety skills will become routine, but as we've seen in many, many presentations today, it's not even routine for adults. But hopefully it will be for our kids. And the big message of this presentation, my message to you guys, especially parents, right? You are the superheroes. You have the opportunity to be the good guy. You have the opportunity to protect your kids. You have the job to protect your kids. That's your role, right? And it's no different with cybersecurity. Over half of the children surveyed are on the internet after 10 p.m. I think that's probably a pretty good stat. 10% admit that they were late to school because of being online late at night. 5% missed school. 90% have their phones, tablets, or computers in their room. And this is a tough one. Again, this probably dates this presentation, but how do you take screens, and it's plural, right? How do you take screens away from your kids at a certain time frame? Maybe you say to them, okay, right, just like there's a bedtime, there's a time when screens go away as well. But you're going to have to be a disciplined parent to do that. But you can set up some simple controls. Regulate the usage, especially at night. How many of us have stayed up late at night and have not had a good day the next day because we didn't sleep well? It's no different for our kids. Prevent usage in private. I like this one. If there must be a computer in the bedroom, make sure the screen faces the door. Keep devices in a central location. Set up a central charging station. This one's been around for a while. You've probably heard this one, but I think it's a good one. Grab all the phones, tablets, and put it in a centralized location, probably in your room. Take your phone out of your hands and plug it in and put it on the same charger. Put them away. Let them charge. Take advantage of built-in access controls. And when this presentation came out, they were harder to find, but I think many of the phones, iPhones and Androids, have a lot more security built into them. Why? Because 37% of kids have accidentally visited sites meant for adults. 20% are searching for those sites on purpose. And we know this. Many devices can be set up, and maybe you don't, but look at the device. Look at your phone. Know it. All right? There are, most of the time, out of the box, you turn it on, there's going to be some security controls. And if there's not controls that you can find easily, there's a bazillion apps out there that you can get that also helps secure it. And that's a good one. Set it up. Set the devices, the controls up before you give it to your children, because if you don't and they detect something, they're going to play. They're going to try to get around it. For even greater control, create all your child's online passwords for them. I thought that was a good one as well. Require the child to have your input before they use an online account or purchasing apps. Some of these social media icons are probably a little dated as well. We can probably name them today, but I could probably put 10 more on here that we might not be able to name, that our kids would be able to name pretty easily. Age requirements, I think my twins were maybe 10 or 11 when they got Facebook accounts, and I think the minimum wage was 13, and mom and dad let them do that. But in my defense, Facebook was new, and we didn't know what it was like, and we didn't know how bad it could be or good it could be. But I don't know if I would do something like that today if I had to do it all over again. 30% of children lie about their age to get onto Facebook. So my kids probably technically lied, but they had mom and dad's permissions, but I'm sure a lot of kids, we can't prevent them unless we're monitoring their activity from going to Facebook and creating an account online. And we know this, all data provided on social networks is stored, and most of the time it is shared by default. Ensure your child's profile is set to private. So I think this is also something that's newer, especially as some of these social media platforms allow more kids to join, right? They understand the difference between children and adults. So take advantage of some of those controls. Talk to your kids. Explain to them what it means to post something, and to your elderly people too, right? My aunt will post personal messages as a post on Facebook, right? Hi, Derin, how you doing? And everybody sees it. So talk to your kids about that as well. Make parental approval of social groups or networks part of your child's parent internet contract. And if you go out to ISC Squared, the Safe and Secure Online portal, They have a lot of different, like this contract that they're referencing and other materials that you can share with your kids. They have things you can color and cartoons you can watch and such, so that you can make those commitments with your kids. Friend or follow your kids so that you can check out what they're doing, and hopefully they won't make a fake account. Let your kids know online activity and posts could be available to everyone, including future employers, which we all know. Maybe some of the younger people in here, when you go get a job, you want to like purge maybe some of your history, but we need to communicate that to our kids as well. Social media should not become a popularity contest. Man, how many adults need to understand that? Treat others the way they want to be treated. Again, ouch. Stop and think before you post. Wow, they're just bringing it to the adults, aren't they? Never share your age, school address, phone number, last name, vacation information, or when parents are not home. This is a big one that we as adults probably take for granted. We either post on purpose or we know not to do this, but our kids might not. They might be taking very similar pictures, or they might be looking at our posts and think they can create a post very similar and give things away that they shouldn't. Never agree to meet a stranger you met online. We know that that's happened as well. A picture be worth more than you know, right? This talks about the metadata that's in pictures. I think I was taking some pictures today with my iPhone, and it popped up, like the iPhone popped up and gave me the metadata. And I thought to myself, yeah, I can't post it online that way. I will have to delete the metadata. Geotagging, same thing, right? Teach our kids, or maybe we could do it for them, to deactivate the geolocation so we don't have to worry about it. And cell phones are changing all the time, right? That last bullet, I think they've gotten a lot better, but yes. All right. I wasn't going to spend too much time on this, especially if there were kids in the room, but this is a big deal, especially for older kids. They're not children anymore, but they're not adults yet either. This is something that I think, I'm kind of thankful I don't have kids younger than 17, because I think I would, and maybe fortunately I had all boys, maybe, but this would be conversations I would be having with them a lot earlier on. Cyberbullying, we've all heard about that. I think that's something that we're going to teach our kids, just like we would teach them the alphabet. We would teach them, and we do in general, we teach them how to be nice kids. But the internet, it's so easy to be anonymous and think that we can get away with things that we're not really supposed to get away with. Some talking points here. Teach your kids. Teach your kids, right? And I'm going to skim through this a little bit, guys. Gaming, and this is one I like. It's not what it was when I was a kid. I was going to say when we were kids, but I'm a little older now. I'm amazed at how video games have changed over the years. So now they have ratings, which they didn't when I was younger. And it's so easy to talk with strangers, right? I remember having a headset, my Xbox 360, again, kind of dates me a little bit, talking to people from around the world I didn't know. That was cool. I was 20-some years old, and now I think, how does that translate to kids? Maybe cool, maybe it's good. Maybe they hear some different accents, maybe they, quote-unquote, make some online friends, but maybe those folks really aren't as far away, or maybe who they say they are, so we have to be careful with that. 50% of children are playing violent games. Again, old stat. I'm sure it hasn't gotten better. Games have restrictions, right? Use them. Be vigilant. And when this presentation came out, these ratings were still fairly new. So the ratings are there for a reason. Use them. How many of us play games that either have chat or, like I mentioned before, you can talk verbally, but there'll be some more slides here in a bit. They talk about chat rooms. Chat rooms is an archaic term. to now it's almost anything you have online that game-wise, you can either talk or you can chat. Chat rooms, right. Webcams, we need to teach our kids the dangers of that. 21% of children visit the chat rooms where they can talk to strangers. 25 of those children gave a stranger their phone number. 1 out of 5 actually spoke with a stranger. 1 out of 10 met a stranger online. Those are some alarming stats. Teach them how to remain anonymous, just like we would to a point, right? We might give a screen name or maybe our first name, but we're going to remain pretty anonymous, even as adults, even when we're talking to adults. Teach our kids to even do more than that. Maybe not give their name. Maybe just stick with a screen name. Choose an alias. Sign out if the topic turns to a sensitive issue like sex and drugs. I think we need to teach our kids that if they're starting to feel awkward or uneasy, that it's okay to disconnect. If we were better parents, maybe we'd be watching over their shoulder so that we might turn it off when that happens. Guilty. I'm guilty of that. Not doing that. Never follow strangers' instructions, send photos, or download content. We need to talk to our kids about that. Passwords. This one's one I like a lot. So when I talk at work, so I didn't mention it in the beginning of my presentation, I work at Black & Veatch. I work in their cybersecurity group. I focus on incident response and also security awareness. So what I tell my professionals is think about that song that's been stuck in your head. Think about a book you've been reading. Think about a movie you watch. Think about a quote. And I encourage people to use a sentence, right? To use a line from a song. Start with uppercase, put spaces in between words, use punctuation throughout, and put a period or an exclamation point. We talked about that this morning, maybe not just an exclamation point, but put punctuation throughout it. When you do that, usually your password is much more memorable. It's much more easier to type. I don't usually pad it with numbers if I'm making something that's that long. And I want to hold your hand, or I'm thinking of, your Beatles song or whatever song it is. Usually that line is going to be 20 to 40 characters long, and you don't think it's going to be 40 characters long until you actually think about the sentence that you're typing. But you don't have to worry about it. Any other password with gibberish in it, 40 characters long would be a nightmare. But sentences are a lot easier, and it's not always the complexity, it's the length of the password. Speak to your children about the risk of downloading. Speak to your employees about that as well. Make sure your antivirus software is up to date. It's so easy to download games, whether it's on your phone or whether it's on your computer. We need to talk to our kids about that. Just like they would spend money, we need to talk to them about that. Before handing a phone to your child, make sure they do not have the ability or a password to install applications. That's a great one. Children should be given information about malware and why it's dangerous to download random things on the internet. They talk a little bit about the differences between different types of malware. And then tips. Keep your antivirus updated. Update your programs. Man, this is the same stuff we tell our employees, isn't it? It's the same stuff we tell people at work. Same stuff we should be telling our kids. Same stuff we should be telling our older relatives as well. Update your antivirus. Update your software. And involve your children in the process so that they understand what they're protecting and why. Antivirus is the mode. Again, this is a little bit dated, right? But passwords are usually the first line of defense, but there's so many other precautions we could take as well. Warnings. My mom, what's this warning mean, right? We get that, right? Our kids should be coming to us with something similar, right? If they see this type of warning, let's not teach them to just click through it, but let's teach them to come to us so that we can see it as well. Update your browsers, update your operating system. Scams. How many stories have you heard? I won't blame it on you. How many stories have you heard of parents that have had to call companies and unorder things to try to get their money back because their kids have ordered things online? I've heard those stories. Phishing emails. Do kids have email? Right? I don't know if that technology is still there for kids, but just like we would teach our professionals who use email a lot, let's teach our kids. It's probably something they're going to use later on in life, so let's teach them the hygiene around email as well. Teach them how to recognize phishing, be cautious of attachments. Same thing we tell our professionals. Always get confirmation from the sender first. Back up your data. Wow, the hits keep coming. Same thing with kids, right? And most phones will do this automatically. When we're at work, OneDrive usually does it, or something like OneDrive. We can do the same thing with our computers, same thing with our kids. Back it up. All right, so start early, keep talking, respect age ratings, teach passwords and privacy. That's probably a big one. Teach your kids how to make strong passwords. Use access controls, protect identity and location. Explain sexting and consequences, protect, update, and backup, and know the signs of cyberbullying, monitor, and communicate. And this is their website, iamcybersafe.org. So I belong to a local chapter, many chapters, but I'm very involved and I helped start the local ISC Squared chapter. So ISC Squared is the one that put this together. They're the bigger sponsor of this. They have presentations, so if you have youth groups, whether it's in a church, whether it's in Scouting or Girl Scouts or whatever the organization is, and they have badges or they have needs to hear this type of message, ISC Squared has some great content out there. Like I say, they partnered with Jim Davis in the past with Garfield, and they made some presentations. There's one on cyberbullying, there's one on privacy, and there's one on posting. No, I don't remember what the third one is, but they're great presentations. And if you reach out to me or the local chapter, we're our chapter. One of the things that we want to do as a chapter with members that are in our chapters to give back to the community and do these types of presentation in our community. So if you have a need for that, reach out to us, and we will try to get some speakers from our chapter that are willing to go. School's another one. Schools are a little harder to get into, but if your school is interested in that kind of thing, we'd be open to that as well. Schools are just usually a little more protective of their lessons and such. But I will say that what I've submitted for this talk today was a lesson plan with all the things that a school would normally require from a lesson plan. And ISC Squared put that all together and provided it to folks to hand out. All right, that's my presentation, guys. Thank you.